1923 London. A woman on the bleak grey lawns of Holloway Prison, shaking hands, panting hard, face as pale as a ghostly face. She is shortly to become one of Britain's most famous death sentence victims. Why did she sentence herself to death? That is where tragedy and scandal start. This is the tale of the hanging of Edith Thompson, a case that has haunted the pages of British justice for more than 100 years. Edith Thompson was not a woman to be expected to find in the dock charged with murder. She was born in 1893 and was a shrewd, middle-class girl who loved reading romance novels and books. She was a shop manager in an upmarket London millinery shop, a success for a woman then. She was independent, ambitious, and extremely imaginative, qualities which were to be her downfall. She had married Percy Thompson in 1916 during World War I. Her marriage was not a fairy tale but a nightmare. Percy was cold-blooded, conventional, and dominating. The home with him was chilly and stifling, and Edith, yearning for passion, felt strangled. And then Frederick Bywaters, 20-year-old naval rating and 7 years older than Edith. Her exact opposite in all ways. Young, good-looking, adventurous, but untrustworthy. He'd been circumnavigated the globe, and his stories of faraway lands enthralled Edith. A brief, all-encompassing romance filled with clandestine encounters and the penning of more than 60 love letters in which Edith attempted to articulate her wildest fantasies, frustrations, and lusts. But those very same letters, full as they were of unbridled emotion, would one day come back to torment and kill her. Edith and Percy were walking home one evening, October 3rd, 1922, after an evening out on the town when, from the shadows, Frederick Bywaters attacked. In an instant, he stabbed Percy repeatedly so that he fell onto the sidewalk. Edith was appalled with horror and screamed. Neighbors began to come out of the flats. Police were very quickly on the scene. Bywaters had been apprehended and brought in within minutes. Edith upset and confused and brought along with him. But here is the twist. Edith never handled the knife. She did not murder her husband. She did not even know of Bywaters' conspiracy. But when she was arrested, she was not greeted as a widowed woman in mourning, but as a suspect, and no wonder why. The police had discovered her letters brimming with daydreams of freedom, poetic fantasies of poisoning Percy, and black despairing fantasies of freedom. She never once, ever uttered a word to Bywaters that she was to murder her husband. Words were more effective at trial than uttered. When Edith Thompson was tried at the Old Bailey, her behavior was not so much called into question. It was her own feelings. The trial gave evil, an adulterous wife, an evil woman who had corrupted a younger man and provoked him to murder. They read her letters in court, tear out of context, twisted out of shape on purpose, and made evil. To the jury, Edith was not a tragic woman to a tragic mistake. She was evil. She was guilty. Frederick Bywaters attempted to clear her name. He continued insisting again and again that he alone had committed the crime, that Edith had nothing to do with it. But the court did not believe him. On the 11th of November, 1922, the court delivered its verdict. Both Frederick Bywaters and Edith Thompson were convicted and sentenced to death. There was a rush and an indignant. Petition forms of thousands of signatures calling for clemency for Edith were presented in a last-ditch effort to spare her life. Even a few of the jurors would later confess that they had never even really comprehended the legal ramifications of their finding of guilt. They all believed Edith wasn't being executed for murder, but for having abnormal desires, for her affair, for her letters, for being a woman who had dreamed of having a different life more than an unwanted marriage. The courts were unreceptive to the world's outcry of anger. Her execution date was set, January 9th, 1923. Edith was shattered in Holloway Prison. She had just escaped solitary confinement, refused even the luxury of friends calling to call in on her, and tantalized by unfounded gossip that she was on death row. She starved herself and suffered incessant bouts of panic for a couple of days before she was killed. Edith was led to the gallows at 9 a.m. She was too weak to walk. There then ensued eyewitness account that after she had fainted, even before they had attempted to kill her, and then something had gone horribly awry. When the trapdoor swung open, her body dropped before the noose had a chance to tighten. There are some who claim she fainted, others that she miscarried in the fraction of a second she was killed. Whatever, one thing was certain. She was alive when the hangman finished the job. Even experienced professionals at watching attested to it being one of Britain's most ghastly hangings. Afternoon. Frederick Bywaters was also put to death in his own jail. While Edith had whimpered and sniveled, he strode to die like a man and accepted responsibility for his act. Edith's execution stunned Britain, however. Finally, the case lay at the heart of one of the largest legal scandals of the 20th century. Did Edith Thompson do it, or was she murdered because she had the wrong thoughts about a woman in those days? The case also faced the court's extremist sexism, how not only were women on trial for what they had done, but for who they were, for what they believed, for where they stood. Most left wondering whether ever the death penalty could be anything but unjust, particularly when invoked on circumstantial evidence and feeling rather than fact. Decades passed, and lawyers, authors, and campaigners continued to have Edith's case in mind. In 1993, her remains were finally exhumed from the Holloway prison graveyard and relocated to a fresh grave in a family burial site, a modest yet optimistic gesture. But still, however, her life remains an apparition which continues to torment us, provoking us to ask tough questions regarding justice, gender, and the force of words. Was Edith Thompson guilty, or was she a miserable victim of a world that despised men too much? Let us know what you have to say in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more in-depth deconstructions of history's most creepy cases. Thanks for watching, and until next time,